Episode 31. The Rich Old Pig. The moment Suzanne left, the old man instantly showed his true colours. He complained that the room was too small, and he wanted to move into a bigger one so they could have their chat in comfort. So, he took Jade to the top floor, but this was no private VIP room. It was a hotel room, with a bed. Clearly he had booked this room before even meeting Jade. He didn't even contact any club staff, but took her up by himself. But Jade followed along. She had, after all, made her own plans. If necessary, she would put everything on the line and fight to the death. Besides, she had brought along plenty of weapons in her bag. The two sat down on a sofa, and Victor began smoking another cigar without no regard for Jade's feelings. Sitting across from him, Jade listened to him boast about the beauty of his former wife, how extravagant she was, how wealthy he was, how powerful his company was. As long as she was willing to marry him, he said, all she had to do was stay home and enjoy her life as a rich woman. From the beginning till the end, Jade sat there thinking to herself, my God, no matter how rich you are, I'm not interested in you.
How is it now, Jadey? We have a mutual understanding, so why don't we get to the main business? It's only a matter of time. We might as well get to know each other better.
As Carson finished bragging about his glorious past, he became quite agitated. He leered as he said, mutual understanding. Then he boldly sat beside Jade and placed his hand on her thigh without her consent. Jade drew back. Victor Carson thought she was just shy, so he took the initiative to begin undressing her.
Jadey, this is what a married couple does. I might be 50, but my skills in bed are still quite impressive. My wives were always exhausted after a night with me.
Jade was shocked beyond belief and stared at this lecherous old man. He was actually bragging about his skills in bed. And wives? How many wives had he had? Aunt Suzanne had said that he was divorced twice. What bullshit. According to him, he'd been divorced at least 5 times. Looking at his face, Jade felt disgust. She thought she couldn't stand it anymore. Mr. Carson, I know you now, but you know nothing about me yet. Jade fought her nausea and changed the subject. However, Mr. Carson could not wait any longer and leaned over her.
It's okay. I know all I need to know. Your aunt already told me all about you. I even know your bra size.
Jade could not hold it in any longer. She reached into her bag and took out a small knife, preparing to defend herself against this old pervert. Just as his disgusting hands were about to touch her breast, there was a knock on the door.
Damn it! Who dares to disturb me?
Mr. Carson swore as he ran to open the door. A man in a waiter's uniform stood before him. Turning his face away from Jade, he held out his hand and said, smiling, Mr. Carson, Miss Winslet asked us to pass this on to you before she left. She thought you might need it. It's a good health product. She said you must remember to use it. I'll leave now. Goodbye. Victor Carson looked at the item in his hand in wonder. He was surprised to find out that it was a tablet of Viagra. Exactly what he needed. He hadn't expected Suzanne Winslet to be so understanding. He grinned and tossed $200 as a tip to the man. Thank you, Mr. Carson. The man closed the door behind him as he left. The handsome waiter raised his head and ran down the hallway. He grabbed the man waiting in the lobby by the shoulders with excitement. Lucas, if you're ever going to do something like that again, remember to include me. Damn, that old man was hilarious. He even tipped me $200. The waiter lifted his head and showed a wicked smile under his blonde hair. It was none other than David Swan. Hey, Lucas, do you think he'll take Viagra? If he really does, I'm dying just thinking about it. David Swan could no longer suppress his laughter. Since Mr. Foster was the one who arranged it, I'm sure he had his reasons. He'd never do anything without a plan. Lucas, who was dressed in black, answered coldly. Swan nodded thoughtfully. You're right. Seems like it was a good idea to visit the Scoville Club today. I certainly did not expect such entertainment. You, however, seem pretty calm after your adventure in the ladies' room. Swan looked at him with malicious glee. Lucas's face twitched, but he kept silent. If Dario Foster did not offer to raise his salary tenfold after this, he would quit immediately. The person who went into the ladies' room to prank Aunt Suzanne was none other than Lucas. When Swan recalled the spectacle of that old woman running into the lobby, practically in her underwear, he burst into laughter again. He'd been the one to gather all those people in the lobby. Old Aunt Suzanne wouldn't dare go out now. After thinking about it, he felt that it was all a bit ruthless. But who told these people to offend the woman that Dario Foster had taken a fancy to?
And I didn't expect that you could act like a waiter,
Lucas answered calmly. Victor Carson slipped the Viagra that the waiter brought into his pocket. There was a beautiful woman in front of him, and now the only thing left was to have sex with her.
Come on, Jade. To celebrate our meeting today, let's have a drink.
Carson took out 2 goblets and poured some wine for himself while he began taking off his clothes. Seeing the shock on Jade's face, he smiled.
This room is a little hot. I'll take off my jacket. Hey, do you want me to take yours off too?
Jade rolled her eyes at him. Hot? Then turn on the air conditioner. Once Carson had taken off his jacket, it was even more clear how obese he was. His beer belly was huge. Jade felt that if she had to face this fat pig for the rest of her life, she'd better be off dead.
Come, JD, drink it.
Victor Carson stared at her breasts. The Viagra was kicking in. He was feeling horny. Episode 32. When Dario rescued Jade. Jade felt her stomach heave. She could not hold it any longer. I'm sorry, Mr. Carson. I'll need to go to the ladies' room.
All right. I'll be awaiting,
he said with a lewd smile, and Jade felt even more disgusted. She fled into the bathroom, but hardly expected that the moment she shut the door, a pair of huge hands would seize her arm. She almost shouted in alarm. Oh my God! Why was there someone else in the bathroom? Don't scream. It's me. A deep, devilish voice sounded in her ear. She turned around and saw a familiar, handsome face. Jade rubbed her eyes in disbelief. She could not believe what she was seeing. It was the shock of her life. She looked at the bathroom, then at the man in front of her. What was going on? This was someone else's room, wasn't it? Dario, what are you doing here? Jade blinked as she asked curiously. Dario Foster smirked wickedly. Then he pinned Jade against the white-tiled wall. He pressed his cool lips to her ear, exhaled softly, and said in a seductive, charming voice, What's the matter? Don't you want to see me? Jade held her breath. She felt like her heart was about to pound right out of her chest. Jade felt an itch in her ears and shrank her neck away from Dario. Surprisingly, this cute reaction made Dario want to tease her even more. Aren't you happy to see me? Dario's deep voice seemed magical, making her fall for him as soon as she heard it. No, I mean, why are you here? This is supposed to be someone else's room. To be honest, she never imagined she'd see him here. How could this man find her anytime, anywhere? Whether she was in her dorm room or here, he had some way to find her. Was he even a human? Dario squinted his eyes, hinting at a threat. He stared at Jade with displeasure. Then why don't you tell me the reason you're in that man's room? He reached out his broad hand and gently touched her chin. His sharp eyes were fixed on her. Jade bit her lower lip and said nothing. Why was she here? When she thought about what Aunt Suzanne had done, her eyes filled with anger. There was no other way she could help her grandmother than to do this. Dario understood all the subtle shifts of emotion in her eyes. Jade was forced to raise her head when he lifted her chin, and her teary eyes met with his indifferent gaze. Do you want a business deal with me? Dario moved close to her face, as if he was going to press his lips to hers. His breath touched her lips, warming them. Jade's gaze flickered and filled with bewilderment. What kind of business? I know nothing about business. I'm not a businesswoman. A mysterious look appeared on Dario's handsome face. He stretched out his wide palm and touched her delicately as if he was stroking something precious, as if afraid she would be hurt. It'll be a good deal. I'll never let you suffer any harm. Dario breathed into her ear bewitchingly. Jade could not understand what he was talking about. Just as she was about to ask for an explanation, she heard anguished screams coming from the hotel room.
Oh, it hurts. My penis, it hurts so bad.
Oh my gosh, what's going on? Jade was bewildered. She had no idea what was going on outside the bathroom. Dario, on the other hand, seemed to know exactly what was going on. Come with me. Huh? Where are we going? Before Jade could come to her senses, Dario had already scooped her into his arms, and she blushed deeply.
It hurts. Suzanne Winslet, what the hell did you give me?
Dario shrugged as he carried Jade with his strong arms, pushing open the bathroom door. He strode through the room without hiding the arrogance in his eyes. At this moment, Victor Carson was rolling on the ground in pain. Jade could not resist trying to see what had caused his miserable screams, but Dario stopped her. Don't look. Cover your eyes. He forced her to cover her eyes with her hands. What are you doing? Jade struggled. What's wrong with you? He's naked. You want to see it? Dario said in a terrifying voice. Jade clapped her hands over her eyes again, but her heart was filled with doubt and shock, wondering what was really going on. Why is he naked? Why isn't he wearing his pants? She could not help but ask. What do you think? Everything had been fine before she asked that question, but now Dario's voice sounded terrifying, as if he was interrogating her. What else would a man do in a room with a woman? Was this girl stupid? How should I know? Jade mumbled. She felt goosebumps break out on her arms, because Dario now had a cold aura about him. She glanced at his face and saw that it had fallen. She fell silent and allowed him to carry her from the room.
Who are you? Let go of my woman. Gods, where did he go? Who allowed him into my room? Damn it, it hurts so much.
The naked Mr. Carson was stupefied when he saw a stranger walk out of his bathroom. And, worst of all, he was carrying Jade. Dario did not even spare Mr. Carson a glance as he walked past him. Mr. Carson writhed in pain. His entire body was feeling strange after he took the Viagra that the waiter had brought. The lower half of his body was inflamed and painful. He felt as if he would be crippled for life. If he had known this would happen, he would never have taken that pill. His penis was grotesquely swollen. The slightest touch was brutally painful, and it just kept getting worse. He had taken Viagra before, but this had never happened to him. Even so, he did not dare to call for help. It was too embarrassing. If anyone found out about this, he would never be able to show his face again. Episode 33. A Beautiful Knife to Scare. When David Swan heard the agonized screams coming from the room, he burst into a loud, harsh cackle.
Hot damn, what an idiot! He really took it!
David Swan clutched his stomach, feeling proud of what he'd done. Even a young man in his 20s couldn't handle the improved version of drugs, let alone a 50-year-old man like Carson. Swan had specially concocted this drug. It served that old man right. He wanted to have sex so badly, and now he had the most powerful Viagra ever. When Lucas saw Dario leave the club, he immediately called an ambulance and tipped off the media to gather at the Scoville Club. It was safe to assume that Victor Carson would be in the headlines tomorrow. Rich old man hospitalized for an overdose on Viagra. Ha! He's done for in his social circle now, and Suzanne Winslet too. There goes her social life. Man, Dario really came up with quite the plan for revenge. How have I never noticed before how evil he is? Lucas glanced at David Swan, and he instantly scurried away. Can I open my eyes now? Dario could not help smiling as he looked at Jade, who was still covering her eyes. Not yet, Dario commanded. Jade then obediently put her hands back over her eyes. She did not know how long he'd been carrying her. All she knew was that the moment she replied to him with an, "Oh," she could feel something moist pressing against her lips, as if someone was kissing her. She slowly opened her eyes and directly met his, just inches from hers. She was so shocked, she nearly fell from his arms. Luckily, Dario hugged her tightly. What are you doing? At that moment, she felt as though she was about to suffocate. She could feel her ears turning red. Dario said nothing and carried her to another, even more luxurious room. After closing the door, he laid her down on the bed. Seeing no trace of emotion on his face, she could not tell what was on his mind. Jade sat nervously on the bed. So, Mr. Foster, is there something you'd like to talk about? Could we do it somewhere else? Why are we in a hotel room? To be honest, Jade was frightened to be in this room. Dario stared at her gloomily, as if he was trying to read her mind, and asked coldly, "What were you doing in that room with that man?" Facing his aggressive tone, Jade was baffled. She suddenly felt that the relationship between them was not merely just friendly. Why would he care what she was doing in the room with Victor Carson? He wasn't even her boyfriend. Jade kept a straight face but said not a word. She didn't know where to begin. Seeing her silence, Dario pinned her down on the bed. "Mr. Foster, don't do this." Jade blushed, covering her face to avoid eye contact. Why was he always doing this? And why did she not seem to hate it? No matter how forcefully he kissed her or pinned her down, what was going on with her? "You better be good and tell me the truth, or else don't even think of getting up," Dario said in an unyielding voice, squinting his long, narrow eyes. Jade gulped. She knew that she was transparent as glass before him. She could not hide any of her thoughts, so she had no plan to lie. In the end, she sighed helplessly and stuttered, "It's my aunt. She sold me to that man. For $5 million as a marriage gift. I didn't expect I was worth that much." Jade smiled wryly as she held up 5 fingers. Her sad smile was heartbreaking. She was not glad for the money. She felt only sorrow at being forced to marry an old man who had divorced multiple times. "I'm asking you, why are you there?" Dario grabbed her arm tightly, with a terrifying look in his eyes. Without waiting for her answer, Dario interrupted. "Even if she sold you, do you really want to sell yourself?" Jade glared at him and shouted angrily, "Don't be ridiculous. I'm not that kind of person. I was planning to threaten him." "Oh? And how are you going to threaten him?" Dario stared as if mocking her. There was a hint of worry in his emotionless eyes, but she did not notice it. "With a knife? I even brought it with me." With that, Jade took out a tiny penknife, only a few centimeters long. Dario was dumbfounded. She actually tried to threaten a man with a penknife? Where did this girl's confidence come from? "You certainly are bold." Jade understood the meaning behind his words and lowered her head silently. Every time she faced his rebuke, she felt like a child who had made a mistake, quietly waiting for his criticism. Her body trembled, and Dario grabbed her wrist when he saw a slight movement of her right hand. "What are you doing?" "Checking on you." Dario spat out the words indifferently. He examined her palm and saw that the cut had healed. There was no fresh wound. He let go of her hand with satisfaction. "At least you listen. Let's continue our discussion." Jade was shocked, but she carried on with her explanation. "I didn't want to do it, but I really had no choice. If I hadn't agreed, my aunt would have thought of some other way to torture me. So I thought, I might as well show them what I've got." When Jade said this, Dario was stunned, though he also felt like laughing. Who would have thought that such a stubborn and strong soul existed within her tiny body? It was just that her method of self-defense was ridiculous. Therefore, Jade explained, she had promised Aunt Suzanne that she would come here today. She had no plan to compromise herself. She came because she chose to fight back. Just in case, she had recorded the conversation between them so she could use it to threaten him. However, she didn't realize things were so much more complicated. "So do you think you will succeed?" From Dario's disdainful tone, Jade could tell that her plan was doomed. At that moment, Jade was filled with mixed emotions. There was anger, but there was also despair and grief. But from the moment she saw Dario in the bathroom, she had begun to see a glimpse of hope, to feel safe. Episode 34. A Sudden Proposal. Jade did not answer his question. Instead, she thought about what he had just said and asked curiously, "So, what about this business deal you mentioned?
Marry me.
But Dario was not asking. He was stating it with certainty, in a domineering tone. Jade's brain stumbled for a moment and her eyes widened. Every part of her body seemed to pause while her thoughts scrambled to catch up. She thought she had misheard. What?
Marrying me is the best choice. I can help you, and you won't need to marry that old man. This deal will absolutely be worth it for you.
Jade's face was filled with terror, her eyes and her mouth frozen wide open. It's not about whether it's worth it or not, it's about… Mr. Foster, you must be joking with me. You're so tall, handsome, and rich. There must be hundreds of women lining up to be your wife, and I'm just an ordinary girl who has nothing. Jade lowered her head, feeling ashamed. She knew where she stood and where he stood, and of the immense difference between them. Upon hearing her words, Dario pondered deeply. He looked into her eyes and said, as if he were distracted,
Yes, I guess you're okay looking, but you don't have a good body. We're not compatible.
Jade nearly fainted. There was no need to belittle her. Dario changed the topic and made another, even more ridiculous statement.
But since you've slept with me, you'll have to do the right thing.
Jade's jaw dropped. What? You said nothing happened between us that day. What do you mean, do the right thing? He couldn't truly want to marry her, could he? Why would he? There was no reason for it, and it was all too sudden. Dario stared at her blushing face with coal-black eyes. He leaned closer to her ear and whispered, Nothing happened, but you saw everything. You're the second woman who has ever seen my naked body. The second woman. When Jade heard that someone else had seen his muscular body, she felt uneasiness stir within her. Could it be jealousy?
What are you thinking? The first woman is my mother. Now, don't you think you should do the right thing?
Dario grinned with a dangerous look in his eyes. Mr. Foster, stop teasing me. I know my status. Do you rich people enjoy teasing people like me? Jade's chin trembled. She thought of Bruce, who had hurt her so deeply that now she feared anyone rich. When Dario saw Jade clench her fists, he grabbed her hands with his. Jade accidentally scratched him with her nails, leaving her petrified with fear. However, he just glanced at the tiny wound and smiled. Then he reached out his slender fingers and touched her delicate chin.
What if I'm serious? Would you believe me? After we get married, you don't have to worry about your grandma's medical bills anymore. You can do whatever you want, and I won't stop you. I'll give you everything I have.
Jade trembled when she heard those words, because she could see the seriousness in his eyes. She simply could not believe that such a fine man would want to marry her. She was only 21 years old. To be honest, she had never thought about marriage. Plus, she'd only ever been in one relationship. This was all too sudden. But why me? She understood the status gap between them. If he wanted, he could easily marry a famous celebrity. As for her, she was just an ordinary orphan who had nothing. Because all I need is a partner I like who is pleasing to my eye. Daria answered with a shrug. Jade was speechless. As long as she was pleasing to his eyes? That was a very simple demand. Does Mr. Foster find me pleasing to his eyes? It made no sense. Really, he should hate her instead. After all, when they first met, she'd been drunk and had thrown herself at him. If he really truly liked her, this man certainly had a strange taste in women.
Be glad.
What?
I just said that you're the only woman who's pleasing to my eyes. That should make you happy, shouldn't it?
Jade was nearly speechless. What was going on with this person? Did he think that all the women in the world would just fall over for him? Mr. Foster, has anyone told you that you're very full of yourself?
Full of himself?
Dario raised his thick eyebrows. His face darkened, but he smiled oddly.
No,
but that's because no one dares to speak the truth to me. Why? Because they're all afraid of me. Jade was perplexed. Afraid of him? Why would they be afraid of him? Dario Foster did not look very scary. But, Mr. Foster, after all, since you're so successful, you do have reason to be a little… Without waiting for her to finish, Dario again pinned her down with a smile on his face. What's wrong? Would you rather marry that old man who needs to take Viagra to get it up I'm so much better than him, don't you think? Richer, better looking. Oh, and the most important thing? I'm stronger, and I can last even longer than him. I promise you'll be satisfied. Dario's voice was becoming softer, more seductive. Jade blushed as she listened to him. When she couldn't take it anymore, she reached out his hand to cover his mouth. This man, why was he always like this? Can you stop saying those kinds of things with a straight face? What kind of things? Forget it. I have no energy to argue with you since I can't win anyway. Jade turned her head to the side, but the sudden rosiness of her cheeks gave her away. Dario smiled and wrapped his arm around her waist. Oh, is that so? You'll just have to get used to it because soon you'll be my wife. Jade snapped her head back around and stared into his enchanting black eyes. Hey, who said I'll soon be your wife? Oh, then whose wife do you want to be? That old man is probably crippled now. Doubt he'll ever be able to get it up again. Whatever poor woman marries him will never have a sex life. Dario pursed his lips. His eyes flashed displeasure. How could there be a woman who would even think of rejecting Dario Foster's proposal? I'll never marry that disgusting old pervert. Jade could hardly bear looking at Victor Carson. Why would she ever want to marry him? Then marry me, and you'll have everything you could ever want. Dario touched her pale pink lips with his thumb and looked into her eyes. Episode 35. To marriage registry or audition? Jade gazed into his bottomless dark eyes and began to consider his proposal. Right. What woman would not want to marry a man like him? Plus, he was offering her such generous conditions, and she would not have to marry that disgusting old man. So what reason could she have to reject him? However, if she accepted his proposal, she would surely offend the Winslets and Mr. Carson too. That might cause trouble for Dario. No matter what, he was still her savior. She didn't want to cause him problems because of her own messed up family. Jade pursed her lips and remained silent. But Dario expertly read her changing emotions in her head. He knew what was on her mind. He bent his head and gently kissed her forehead. His tone softened. Don't worry. As long as you marry me, everything you're worrying about right now will be fine. But I have nothing, and I have everything, so I need nothing from you. I come with a lot of problems. That's fine. I like solving problems. Jade stared with her mouth wide open. She felt as if her heart was slowly being conquered by him. But I don't love you, she finally blurted out. As expected, Dario's face sank and became expressionless once more. His dark gaze seemed to see through to her soul. She shifted uncomfortably. Then he smiled grimly. Each word was infused with utter confidence and domination. It doesn't matter. You'll eventually fall in love with me. Do you really want to marry me? Jade felt her heart wavering. Do I look like I'm joking? Dario's face was calm, but his eyes were filled with determination and seriousness. Jade looked for a long time into his dark, glittering eyes before she finally spoke. I accept your proposal, but there are conditions. Dario's eyes narrowed as he raised his eyebrows. Well, this was interesting. Conditions from her? Go ahead. First of all, because I don't love you, that means you can't force me to do that kind of thing with you, so we must sleep separately. And also, I don't want to have a child with you. Certainly, as long as you're happy, Dario answered as soon as she finished. Jade was quite shocked. She'd expected him to resist such unreasonable requests. That would have given her a reason to reject him, but he had actually agreed to all of them. Damn it. Now how was she going to get out of this impossible situation? She felt like slapping herself in the face. About that, so, are you serious? Of course, Dario answered patiently. Usually if someone asked him a question more than once, he told them to get lost. But facing Jade, he seemed to have infinite patience. Jade widened her big round eyes as she felt panic rising. Wait, I have one more condition. There's more? Oh, if you don't agree, I will agree. But I haven't even told you what it is yet. It doesn't matter what you say. I agree. You should be satisfied by now. Jade took a deep breath and said something that even she found ridiculous. I will marry you, but I'll never fall in love with you. There'll be no love between us. We're just living under the same roof. So, you must not fall for me either. I'll do my best to play my role as a pleasing wife. Jade observed his reaction as she spoke, afraid that he would get up and leave. After all, she had gone too far with her words. But he did not. His expression remained serene from the beginning to the end, as if everything was as he expected. Fine. Dario narrowed his eyes, revealing a trace of a smile. However, I'm afraid that you might not be able to control your heart. Jade smiled and replied confidently. Oh, I will. If I can't control my heart, then how is it even mine? I think the same goes for you as well. I don't know why you must marry me, but I'm certain it's not because you love me. After all, the two of them had only known each other for a few days. Dario raised his eyebrows, thinking that she was adorable when she tried to appear confident. Jade, you child, did you really think it would be that easy to control your heart? Good, now that you've agreed, then let's register for the marriage license. Go get your passport and identification papers. Dario moved swiftly now that things were decided. What? Jade felt the shock of her life. Register for the marriage license now? This man. Why did he always have to be so decisive about things? Couldn't he give her a little time and space? It's already 4:30 p.m. If we don't hurry, we might not make it in time. Upon hearing the time, Jade flew to her feet. What? What time did you say it was? She'd almost forgotten an important matter. What's wrong? I still need to go to the audition. It's so late. Surely the audition hasn't ended, has it? It was almost too late for Jade to make it to the university in time. And also, Jade lowered her head in disappointment and frowned. It's over. It's over. Everything is over. If I don't marry Mr. Carson, then I won't be able to cover my grandmother's medical bills. Jade nearly broke down in tears as she spoke. How could she be so selfish? How could she abandon her grandmother just for her own sake? What are you afraid of? As I said, everything will be resolved. Dario looked at her tear-streaked face and felt a tug at his heart. But my grandma needs $300,000 for her surgery and hospital stay. Where could I get so much money from? Mr. Foster, do you have that much money? Jade lifted her gaze and stared at him innocently with her huge round eyes. To Jade, $300,000 was such an astronomical amount. She couldn't imagine even a wealthy person taking that much money out on a moment's notice. Dario's face twitched when she asked him that question. The wine that she drank at his house earlier cost far more than $300,000. What do you think? Well, I think you could hardly afford to take out that much amount of money. Jade gave it another thought. After all, he owned a luxurious car, so maybe he could do it. Could I? Hardly. Yes, I suppose it's somewhat difficult. It's impossible to communicate with someone who has no idea of money. But it was just that reason why she had no interest in Victor Carson's $5 million. After thinking about it, she decided maybe it was not that hard for him after all. Oh, right. Mr. Foster, you seem free all the time since you're always outside. Don't you need to work? Jade asked curiously. I'm unemployed. Only deal with some businesses occasionally. He only dealt with some businesses that were worth billions occasionally. Therefore, most of the time, he was free. Episode 36. Is the CEO homeless? Jade felt even more shock. What? Are you saying you're unemployed? Then why did you bring me to such a luxurious hotel? And why are you wearing such expensive clothes? You even hired a driver, and your car must cost a fortune. Isn't that all a huge waste of money? This won't work. Throughout Jade's worrying, Dario simply stared at her in silence. Jade froze in panic, her eyes filled with anxiety. Then what about my grandma's medical bills? I've already told you. Don't worry. I'll pay for all your grandmother's bills. Jade stared at him in disbelief. It's a total of $300,000, and that's not all. There will be more bills. Won't it be impossible for you to give me so much money, and I don't even know when I can return it to you? You don't have to return it, Dario said indifferently. Jade felt terribly uncomfortable. Ever since she was little, she hated to spend other people's money. She preferred to earn her own, even if she earned only a little. But there was nothing she could do this time. Her grandmother's bills were far too much. I know. My classmate told me that the dress I took from your room cost several $1,000s. Is that true? No, Dario responded. So that wasn't true. It had almost scared her to death to think she'd worn such an expensive dress. Jade finally felt some relief. Oh, that's good. Anyway, I got it dirty, so I washed it at the dorm. I'll give it back once it's dry. It looks expensive, though. In the end, she could not help but mutter to herself, it must have cost at least a couple of $100s. Dario could hardly keep a straight face. A couple $100s. The truth was, the dress cost more than a few $100,000. To be accurate, it cost $1 million. And had she actually washed a $1 million dress herself? Did she not know a dress like that should be dry cleaned? Dario realized the first thing he would need to do once they were married was to teach her to recognize those luxury brands, and also to brainwash her so it didn't drive him crazy. All right, let's not waste any more time. Let's go. Dario let go of her hand. Wait, where are we going now? Don't you want to go to the audition? We're heading to Stonington University, of course. Hearing that he wanted to send her back to school, hope sparked briefly in Jade's eyes, but they dimmed in the next second as she waved her hand sadly and smiled bitterly. Forget it, there's no need. I won't be chosen. Please, just take me to Augustana Medical Center instead, to see my grandma. She must still be in the nurse's office. I'm worried about how she's doing. Dario came forward and held her hands tightly. Don't worry. I will take care of all your problems. But no buts, I promise. When you return from the audition, your grandmother will also be back in her room. Really? Dario held her hand and led her out of the club. So many people were staring at her as they walked out together. She felt overwhelmed with shyness. She couldn't tell if they were jealous, but for some reason, she didn't want to let go of him. His hand was so big and warm, wrapped around her small hand. It gave her a secure feeling she had never felt before. Lucas and David Swan, who'd been waiting in the car near the door, were dumbfounded to see Dario Foster walking out of the club holding Jade's hand. They were stunned. In the front passenger seat, David wiped the windshield clean, afraid to miss even a moment. I can't believe what I'm seeing, our Mr. Foster being so gentle. Get in. Jade obediently got into the car and immediately noticed that there was someone else inside. She tugged on Dario's sleeve, whispering, Is he your driver too? Why do you hire so many drivers? Although she whispered, David heard her. Stiffly, he turned his head and said in an injured tone, Miss Winslet, I am not his driver. Oh, then, are you a bodyguard? What? A bodyguard? I'm sorry. Did I guess wrong again? Jade ducked her head apologetically, like a child who had made a mistake. He could hardly be angry when she looked like that. But David was deeply wounded by her words. All he could do was turn his head away and keep quiet. He was afraid that next she would ask if he was Dario's secretary. Lucas, who was always so careful, struggled to hold back his laughter at Jade's words. Who would expect this rich young master to be mistaken for a driver? It was one of the best jokes he'd ever heard. The moment Dario opened his mouth to speak, the car fell silent. None of them noticed the hint of a smile in his eyes. Well, what are you waiting for? Let's go. The silence hung in the air, like the suspended moment before a falling glass shatters on the ground. It was like a gaping void, desperate to be filled with sounds, words, anything. It felt like a sin even to breathe. Jade began to observe the car's interior while sitting cautiously on the edge of her seat. The car was totally different than any taxi she'd ever ridden in. It was obviously so much more luxurious and comfortable. Jade asked curiously, Mr. Foster, how much does this car cost? It seems awfully nice. She was still brooding over his promise to pay for her grandmother's medical bills, afraid that he would go broke. What if he cashed in all of his possessions for her? David, who was sitting in front, could not resist holding up 5 fingers. There's your price. What? Don't tell me it cost $500,000. That's so expensive, Jade exclaimed with wide eyes. Lucas almost lost control of the car. Dario frowned and said sharply, "If you don't know how to drive, get out." Lucas immediately sat up and focused on his driving. He didn't dare listen to whatever Jade said next, or else he might drive off the road. Miss Winslet, 500,000 isn't enough to buy this car." David almost fainted. Where in the world did Dario find such an innocent child? If any other woman had been sitting in a car like this, she would have been blown away by now. But this Jade, she was actually trying to guess how much it cost. Jade dropped her chin, feeling embarrassed as she tried to comprehend the numbers they were throwing around. Episode 37. Exceptions to the conditions. Don't tell me this car cost $5 million. Oh my God, Jade muttered to herself. A vision of a huge pile of money surfaced in her mind. She felt she couldn't earn that much money, even if she worked the rest of her life. From the looks of things, Dario seemed to be quite rich. Maybe it would be no problem for him to pay off her grandmother's bills. She began to feel more at ease. But David really wanted to defend Dario Foster against the injustice. The car was worth $5 million, and this was one of his middle-tier cars. His family still owned a few of the limited edition cars that were worth around $30 million. Just when David was deciding whether to tell Jade the truth or not, he felt a chill down his spine. When he looked at the rearview mirror, he saw Dario glaring at him. He swallowed hard and said awkwardly, "A little more than $500,000. Oh, I see. A little over $500,000, Jade thought. $500,000 was enough for her to live on for the rest of her life without working. Besides living with the Winslets, she'd never owned any luxurious brand items before. She only saw the brands that her cousin owned, such as Chanel and Louis Vuitton, but she didn't know how much they cost. Her own bags and outfits cost only a few dollars, just something off the rack. Although her friends always mocked her, she was satisfied with what she had. After all, she earned her own money, and she could use it as she pleased. David was on the verge of tears when he saw Dario's expression. Jade raised her head, looked at Dario, and asked worriedly, "Mr. Foster, are you really rich?" "No," Dario answered without hesitation. He actually did not have any money on him at that moment, just a card that carried a few $100 million. "Then this car?" Dario glanced coldly at David, who began to explain to her while weeping. "Miss Winslet, I was just kidding. Actually, this car only cost around $100,000. He was afraid that she would not believe him, so he added, "I swear." Jade let out a sigh of relief after hearing these words. She said with embarrassment, "That's good. I thought for a moment that Mr. Foster was extremely rich. If that was the case, the status gap between us would be way too big." She clenched her fists and bit her lower lip, afraid that he was like those rich people she knew. It made her think of Bruce, and she never wanted to be toyed with again by rich people. She could not afford to be hurt like that again. An ordinary woman like her should find an ordinary man, she thought. Only then would it be a perfect match. "Yeah, he's not that rich. Look at Lucas. His salary is only $2,000, David said while patting Lucas's shoulder. What he didn't say was that the $2,000 was a daily salary. Naturally, Jade would take it as his monthly salary. Lucas rolled his eyes at him and continued driving. Jade blinked and nodded thoughtfully. $2,000 is good. Sometimes I've earned $1,000 for a TV series for a month. Thinking about how she'd been abused in the film industry earlier, Dario felt his heart ache as his gaze darkened. Despite all her hard work, she had a monthly salary of no more than $1,000. She didn't even earn half of Lucas's daily salary. Dario squeezed her small hand in his strong fist. Jade wanted to pull her hand away, but the more she struggled, the tighter he gripped. Mr. Foster, we're not alone. Have you forgotten our agreement? You can't go back on your word." Close to his warmth, she could feel her own body temperature rising. Dario replied calmly, "I did promise you, but I don't remember you saying that I'm not allowed to hold your hand." Jade was speechless. He was right. She hadn't said that. Dario was always taking advantage of any opportunity, and she regretted it. If only she knew that he would not agree to the conditions so readily, she would have put more thought into it. Even now, she was feeling she'd been too impulsive in accepting his proposal. After all, she barely knew him. They arrived at Stonington University. Jade hopped out of the car before they reached the university's main gates, fearing it would cause another ruckus. But when she rushed to the classroom where the audition was being held, it was nearly deserted, with only a few people milling about. She asked a passerby only to learn that the audition had ended. Plus, she heard that the roles had already been assigned, so the crew probably wouldn't come back. Jade lowered her head with disappointment. The audition manager had been right. There was only one chance, and she had missed it. But even if she had to choose again, she would have chosen the same. After all, her grandmother was the most important person in this world. She rubbed her face, trying to hide her emotions. No matter what, she could still thank the man who brought her. She tried to pretend she was fine, but Dario noticed the sadness in her eyes immediately. He opened the door and stepped out of the car to wait for her. Upon seeing her, he pulled her into his arms. "Mr. Foster, stop it!" Jade jumped in fright, aware that everyone was staring at her. She did not want to draw any attention, but Dario ignored the bystanders and continued hugging her. Did the crew leave? Seeing her come out of the audition room so quickly, he already knew. Yes, Jade nodded with disappointment. But it's fine. Even if I made it in time, I probably wouldn't have been chosen anyway. She comforted herself. Dario continued holding her quietly. Jade breathed in the scent of his body. After some time, she broke free from his strong embrace. I still have to go to the hospital to check on my grandma. I've been away for so long. I wonder if she's okay. Mr. Foster, can you please take me to the hospital? No, Dario said plainly. Jade lowered her chin, feeling uncomfortable. She didn't expect such a harsh rejection. However, it was reasonable, she thought. Did she have the right to ask him for any help at all? Then I'll take the bus. Sorry to bother. Before Jade could finish her sentence, Dario cut her off. Let's have dinner first. What? Before she could object, Dario had already pulled her along. What do you mean, what? It's dinner time. If he had to guess, she probably hadn't even had lunch. I'll pass. I really need to check on Grandma. No, that won't do. You promise me. Dario smiled, with no intention of letting go of her hand. Episode 38. If not desire, then what? Huh? When did I say that? Jade was confused. Why was he always confusing her? He said it this morning, have you forgotten? Dario reached out and tapped on her forehead gently. His eyes were soft with concern as he reminded her. When I rescued you in the morning, you said you would do anything to repay me. Now, I want you to treat me to dinner. That's my repayment. Can't you do that? So, that's it? Jade had been certain he would make some strange demand. Then she dropped her chin awkwardly and said, But I don't have much money on me, so I can't treat you to anything nice. I don't mind. Just pick the place you love the most. But Jade stared at him in disbelief. He couldn't actually want to eat with her in those tacky restaurants near the university, could he? What do you like to eat? Let's have pizza. Normally that was all she could afford. And when she was really, really broke, all she could afford was instant noodles from the microwave in her dorm room. Then let's go. Dario didn't give her a chance to think any further and pulled her along with him. Just before leaving, he whispered something to Lucas, who nodded repeatedly with a serious face. Jade brought him to the pizza place with some embarrassment. Here it is. Her feet felt like they were stuck to the ground. She couldn't seem to make them move. Dario practically had to drag her into the restaurant. Go on. Cade Sape will be back at the university once we're done eating. Puh. What are you laughing at? Mr. Foster, I appreciate you trying to cheer me up. Jade burst into laughter. She knew that Zape wasn't coming back, but still, it was sweet that Dario teased her and made sure she got some dinner. Do you really want to eat? Before Jade could finish, Dario had already entered the restaurant and sat down at a table. She had no choice but to follow. After all, she had promised to repay him. She couldn't go back on her word. David Swan, who was sitting in the car, was again shocked beyond belief. Wow, Lucas, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? Did he just enter that shop? An extremely ordinary pizza place, Lucas answered casually. Are you saying that he has a crush on her? No way. David Swan was dumbfounded. He had always imagined the woman by Dario's side would either be a famous movie star or a girl from a wealthy family. He had never thought that it would be a silly girl who didn't even understand how much a Maserati cost. Lucas had stolen David Swan's line. He was certain about that. He'd been working for Dario for 8 years now. He was the one who knew him best. He had never seen Dario treat any woman this kindly. If this wasn't love, what else could it be? The moment Dario walked into the restaurant, every woman inside was stupefied. Even the waitresses were gawking at him. It was pretty unexpected to see such a good-looking man in such a run-down pizza place. The female customers instantly changed tables, wanting to sit closer to this handsome stud. A fight almost broke out for the table nearest to him. In less than 5 minutes, the restaurant was filled with customers. It was packed. Oh my God, I had no idea there was such a beautiful hunk at Stonington University. Are you an idiot? He's definitely not from Stonington. Ah, so handsome. He looks like a Marvel superhero. I'm gonna faint, I swear. Is that woman next to him his girlfriend? Damn, she must have some special hidden talents. I'd love to sit next to him and share a slice. While the girls all around were whispering about them, Jade sank into her chair, wishing she could disappear. Jade had thought that with his personality, Dario would leave the restaurant as soon as he saw the chaos and all the gawkers. But oddly enough, Dario completely ignored his surroundings. It was as if the people around him didn't exist. In his eyes, there was only Jade. Everything else was just backdrop. Even in such an environment, he gave off a noble aura. His presence attracted even more customers to the shop. The waitress was petrified. Her boss had to remind her to bring them a menu. Hello, this is the menu? 2 slices of pepperoni pizza? Without even consulting the menu, Dario ordered. His deep, seductive voice rang out, causing another uproar. Oh my God, handsome and a voice to die for. My heart is melting. It sounds like the voice of an angel. Could there be a more perfect man in the world? The waitress stood holding her pen, transfixed by his seductive voice. It'll be just a few minutes. It was not Jade's first time eating here, but she had never felt so uncomfortable. How about next time I treat you when I have more money? I'll bring you somewhere nicer. This place doesn't exactly seem to suit you. Jade blushed with embarrassment. She thought, with a car worth $100,000, he should be dining somewhere more elegant. Wasn't he lowering himself to eat in such a place? Then again, if she took him to an expensive restaurant, how would she pay? She'd never even been to a place like that. She wondered if she would just embarrass him if they went together. Jade was caught up in her anxious thoughts. Dario patted her hand when he saw her face. He smiled gently and said, It's okay. Here you go, 2 slices. The waitress reappeared with 2 slices of pepperoni pizza on greasy paper plates. Dario passed a plate to her and handed her a napkin. The whole situation made her feel even more foolish. Hey, waitress, I'd like a slice of pepperoni too. Me too. Somehow, pepperoni pizza had just become the hottest selling item in the restaurant. It seemed everyone wanted to eat whatever the hot guy was eating. We're out of pepperoni, the cook shouted. Then just cheese, I'll pay the same. The women kept their eyes glued on Dario, afraid to miss a moment. When Jade looked up from her plate, she saw Dario was holding the slice up to her mouth. She leaned back in astonishment, then looked at Dario's hand, feeling even more embarrassed. I can definitely eat by myself. Regardless, Dario showed no intention of putting down the slice. He looked at her with a commanding gaze and insisted that she take a bite. Episode 39. Want to be punished? Briefly, they were deadlocked. Jade felt she had no choice but to take a bite. She felt the stares of women around her, like bullets piercing her body. Afraid that he would try to feed her again, she quickly picked up her pizza and took another bite. However, Dario was not done. He pointed at his slice and said, Reciprocity. What? What do you mean? Jade looked at him apprehensively. Feed me. What? No way. Jade looked around the restaurant and blushed. Why did Dario want her to feed him? This was beyond embarrassing. Plus, what they were doing right now looked just like a couple in love. The whole thing made her extremely uncomfortable. Seeing Jade hesitate to feed him, the other women in the restaurant eagerly volunteered. Hey, dummy, if you don't want to feed him, I'll do it. That's right. Hey, hot guy, I can feed you. Jade thought that they were joking, but then an extremely bold girl walked towards their table and seemed about to grab Dario's slice. Jade snatched his plate, feeling fairly stupid. She held up the slice and shoved it into Dario's mouth. Dario noticed the flash of emotion in her eyes. He smiled with satisfaction. Oh my God, he's even hot when he's eating a piece of pizza. Right? Perfection. This is so unfair. He's so gorgeous. Jade quickly finished her own slice. She could hardly even look at Dario. This was the first time she'd ever fed a man. As they ate, Jade glanced at him occasionally. She was afraid that he would hate the place or complain about the food. After all, he was wealthy. It was a step down for him to eat in such a run-down restaurant. Surprisingly, Dario showed no sign of distaste. He ate his pizza neatly, somehow avoiding getting grease all over his fingers. Jade, on the other hand, she looked like a beggar who'd been starving for days. She felt even more ashamed. There he was, looking elegant and polished in his expensive suit. He didn't even seem to feel out of place in this dumpy pizza place. No wonder all the women in the restaurant were head over heels in love with him. After finishing their pizza, Dario took Jade's arm and pulled her out of the restaurant. Jade balked. She hadn't even paid yet. Wait, slow down. I haven't paid for our pizza. The moment she spoke, 3 women rushed to the counter and volunteered to pay. Let's go, Dario said, grabbing Jade's hand. Jade was dragged along behind him on the verge of tears. Never in her life before had she skipped paying for her own meal. What kind of person was Dario to leave without paying? This is wrong, Mr. Foster. I know I'm poor, but I can't eat without paying. Dario turned back and looked into her tearful face. He laughed and tapped her forehead. Silly, I've already paid. What, really? Yes. He looked so earnest, Jade decided to believe him. The truth was, Lucas had snuck in and paid for their pizza while they were eating. This ridiculous child, did she really think he would allow her to pay? He could hardly bear the thought. I've sent David Swan to pay for your grandma's medical bills. If you're still worried, you can call the hospital. What? Really? Jade's eyes brightened, as if scattering rays of sunshine, vanquishing the haze. For some reason, she understood he wouldn't lie to her about something like this. Let's go. Where? Stonington. Why are we going back to the university? For the audition. Mr. Foster, stop teasing. Mr. Zape has already left. Why would I go back for an audition? Dario held her hand firmly and brought her back to the building where the auditions had been held. How will you know if you don't take a look? But Jade stood at the stairs hesitatingly, but the look in his eyes somehow convinced her. It was impossible, though, wasn't it? Why would the production crew have come back? There was no reason for them to come back. They had already cast all the roles. Hurry! Dario pushed her back, urging her forward. Jade braced herself and began to climb the stairs to the second floor. Just as she started, she felt a force pulling her back. She turned and fell into a familiar, muscular embrace. Before she could think, she could feel something warm pressing against her lips. Startled by this sudden kiss, she covered her mouth and stared at Dario. It was clear from her eyes that she wanted to know what he was thinking. Dario, on the other hand, leaned closer to her ear and whispered, You never said I couldn't kiss you. You! Jade scowled. She wanted to tell him he was despicable, but the look in his gentle eyes squashed her words. Good luck. If you fail, I'll punish you, Dario said seriously, as he stared at her tempting lips. What punishment? Jade was shocked and confused. Who could understand what was in this man's mind? You'll know when the time comes. Dario grinned devilishly. Jade clapped her hands over her mouth. What's wrong? Don't you want to go audition for a role? Maybe you want your punishment now, Since she was frozen in place, Dario leaned in close, wrapped his arms around her waist, and raised his eyebrows. They were so close, they seemed to be breathing in unison. Episode 40. Access to the audition. Just as his lips were about to touch hers, Jade shoved him away and dashed up the stairs to find the second floor. As she walked down the hallway, she could hear noise from the audition room. Jade peered through the doorway, where she could clearly see the entire production crew. Photographers, assistants, the directors, all the equipment. It was completely set up and ready for auditions. Jade stood stock still. She must be mistaken. Had they really come back? She pinched herself to see if she was dreaming. Just then, a man by the door glanced at her and said, "Hey, aren't you Jade, a girl from this morning?" Jade stepped forward cautiously. "Yes, that was me. I'm really sorry about this morning. I had an urgent matter." She felt stupid. This was the guy who had called out her name over and over. "All right, enough. Just go in there and audition." "What? Really? Just walk in? Do you want to or not?" "Yeah, of course. Okay, I'm going." Jade rushed into the audition room. Cade Zape was one of the most famous directors in film. He was also very picky when selecting his actors and actresses. Jade had heard that he was harsh even with the biggest stars. Zape quickly scanned Jade's application form and then her pictures. He realized that she was suited for playing a student, which just happened to be perfect for his movie. However, student or not, Jade would still have to prove herself. "You have 30 seconds to introduce yourself. Begin." A comment like that from such a director would have frozen almost anyone else. But not Jade. She took barely a moment and then fell back on her natural talent. She launched into a self-introduction in front of the entire production crew. From start to finish, she betrayed no trace of anxiety. Her expression was natural, and she spoke fluently but with elegance and polish. When she was finished, the director checked his watch. It was exactly 30 seconds. He was already impressed by this girl. This morning, so many hopefuls had failed to introduce themselves so naturally. Zape had rejected some of them after just 10 seconds. Overall, he was more than satisfied with her performance. He nodded his head. "You, give her a script." "Thank you." When Jade took the script, she was stunned to see that she held the script for the female lead in her hands. Maybe Zape was just trying to test her. It was impossible to think that she'd get the part of the female lead. She quickly skimmed the script and sized up the situation. It was set at a university, and it focused on the competition and resentment among all the wealthy families at the school. The female lead was the destitute daughter of a rich family. Her older brother had stolen her father's inheritance after he passed away. She had no choice but to stay with his family and endure their humiliation. The script Jade was holding in her hands was a scene of the female lead being abandoned by her boyfriend. Jade's heart began to pound. The female lead was living a life like Jade's. Both of Jade's parents had also died, and she'd been abandoned in the same way. She felt herself becoming the character. She even felt her eyes begin to tear up. "You've only got 10 minutes to prepare. Is that going to be a problem?" Zape challenged her. 10 minutes to memorize 2 pages of dialogue, dozens of movements and facial expressions. Besides, there was no one else to act the other parts, so she would have to do it alone. To someone who didn't understand acting, it might seem that Zape was trying to make things hard for her. How could a newcomer play a scene that called for the highest level of skill? No one in the room thought Jade could pull it off. However, Jade shrugged, smiled, and said, "Sure, no problem." She walked to the side of the room and began memorizing the script. After 10 minutes, she returned and handed the script to the script supervisor. She said to Zape, "Director, I'm ready. We can now begin." Zape noted the confidence in her eyes. He was amazed by her quick preparation and her self-possession. No beginner would behave this way. However, she maintained her composure and said, "Okay, let's go, everyone, get ready." The director shouted, "Action!" And immediately the expression on Jade's face was transformed. Instantly, her enchanting eyes filled with hatred. She bit her lower lip hard and looked angrily at her imaginary ex-boyfriend, trembling with rage. Bruce Stevens' face appeared before her eyes. Just thinking about how he and her cousin had humiliated her pulled her even further into the scene. Why? Why are you doing this to me? It was a simple line, but filled with so much emotion, disbelief, anger, despair. She performed the entire scene with astonishing authenticity. Her physical performance, her facial expressions, her tone and manner of speaking, all of it absorbed everyone in the room. They all felt her heartache, as if she really had been ruthlessly abandoned. Her acting even amazed Zape, who had worked with many of the best actors on the planet. Jade looked in the direction where her character's ex-boyfriend was supposed to be standing. Though she had to complete the scene alone, she had no problem summoning up all her rage. So, it turns out you were toying me. You only wanted my father's inheritance, just like my uncle. I hate you. Jade's voice was shaking and cracking. The crew watching the scene truly felt her emotion. I'll never forgive you. You will get what you deserve one day. Jade clenched her fists, and an indescribable anguish appeared in her eyes. 5 minutes later, the scene was nearly over. Her face was wet with tears, her eyes red and swollen.